Happened Today in History, June 1st edition. In 1495, the first batch of Scotland's most iconic beverage, whiskey, was recorded by a monk named John Core. In 1990, George H.W. Bush, President of the United States, and Mikhail Gorbachev, the General Secretary of the Soviet Union, signed a treaty to end chemical weapon production. In 1498, Christopher Columbus embarked on his third voyage to the New World. Kentucky becomes the 15th state of the United States in 1792, and Tennessee becomes the 16th state 4 years later in 1796. In 1815, Napoleon enacts a revised constitution following its approval through a groundbreaking plebiscite. Happy 85th birthday to the legendary Morgan Freeman, who was born in 1937. A year earlier, 1936, the icon, Marilyn Monroe, was born. Today, she would have been 86 years old. What happened today in history, June 2nd. In 1848, the Slavic Congress in Prague began, reuniting nearly all the Slav population of Europe. In 1919, anarchists simultaneously set off bombs in 8 separate U.S. cities. In 1946, Italians voted to turn Italy from a monarchy into a republic, and King Umberto II of Italy was exiled shortly after. Queen Elizabeth II was crowned at Westminster Abbey in 1953. In 1924, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge granted citizenship to all Native Americans born within the territorial limits of the United States. In 1979, Pope John Paul II started his first official visit to his native Poland, becoming the first pope to visit a communist country. Violent fights broke out between Chilean and Italian players during the FIFA World Cup in 1962. Wentworth Miller, known for his role as Michael Scofield in Prison Break, was born on this day in 1972. What happened today in history, June 3rd. In 1940, during World War II, the German Luftwaffe launched a bombing raid on Paris, targeting the French capital. In 1916, the National Defense Act was signed into law, increasing the size of the United States National Guard by 450,000 men in preparation for World War I. Long before that, in 713, Byzantine Emperor Philippicus was blinded, deposed, and sent into exile. He was succeeded by Anastasios II, who began reorganizing the Byzantine army. In 1965, Edward H. White II became the first American astronaut to perform a spacewalk during the Gemini 4 mission. He spent about 23 minutes outside the spacecraft, floating freely in space. 14 years later, in 1979, an oil well blowout occurred in the southern Gulf of Mexico, resulting in the release of approximately 3 million barrels of oil into the surrounding waters. What happened today in history, June 4th. In 1989, the Tiananmen Square protests demanding political reforms were brutally suppressed by the People's Liberation Army, resulting in an unofficial estimate of between 241 and 10,000 lives lost. In 1940, the British Armed Forces successfully completed evacuation of 338,000 troops from Dunkirk in France. Winston Churchill delivered his famous "We shall fight on the beaches" speech exclusively to the House of Commons. In 1896, Henry Ford completed his first gasoline-powered automobile, the Ford Quadricycle, and successfully tested it. In 1919, the U.S. Congress approved the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, guaranteeing suffrage to women and sending it for ratification by the U.S. states. In 1975, the beautiful Angelina Jolie was born. Today, she is turning 48 years old. What happened today in history, June 5th. In 1981, a weekly morbidity and mortality report by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention mentioned 5 cases of a rare form of pneumonia in Los Angeles. This discovery later became the first recognized incidence of AIDS. In 1944, troops from the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and other countries were supposed to retrieve the beaches of Normandy from the Germans. However, unfavorable weather conditions, including strong winds and rough seas, caused a 24-hour delay in the operation, known as D-Day. In 1968, Robert F. Kennedy, the brother of John F. Kennedy, was tragically assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel. The very first trip of the Orient Express took place in 1883. It started from Paris and went all the way to Vienna, covering more than 1,200 miles. On this day in 1975, the talented actor Mark Wahlberg was born, going on to make his mark in the entertainment industry. What happened today in history, June 6th. In 1944, the implementation of Operation Neptune, commonly known as D-Day, stands as the most massive amphibious invasion in history. Approximately 160,000 Allied soldiers crossed the English Channel. By day's end, the Allies successfully landed on 5 different beaches. 100 years earlier, in 1844, the Young Men's Christian Association, YMCA, was founded in London. The first drive-in theater opened in 1933. In 1889, downtown Seattle was ravaged and completely devastated by the Great Seattle Fire. In 1971, Soyuz 11 was launched. The mission ended in disaster during re-entry on June 29th. Tetris was first released on this day in 1984. 10 years ago, Edward Snowden leaked highly classified information from the NSA, sparking controversy about national security and individual privacy. What happened today in history, June 7th? In 1494, the Portuguese Empire and the Spanish Empire signed the Treaty of Tordesillas, which divided the newly discovered lands outside Europe between the two empires. In 1654, Louis XIV was crowned King of France, earning the title of the Sun King. In 1905, Norway's parliament dissolved its union with Sweden, and 2 months later, a national plebiscite supported the vote. The Italian government ratified the Lateran Treaty in 1929, guaranteeing the sovereignty of Vatican City. Sir Christopher Lee passed away in 2015 at the age of 93. He was not only a descendant of Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor, but also had a diverse career. He joined the Royal Air Force during World War II, sang opera, and even recorded a metal album. Tom Jones was born in 1940, Liam Neeson in 1952, and Prince in 1958.